So let's take all of this now to the News Center. We have NewsNation political contributor Denise Gitsham joining us today, along with Nick is a professor at Pepperdine University. Welcome back. And Nick, if I could start with you on this. 4 seats wiped out is the storyline. Is this a big deal heading into the midterms, what happened in Virginia today?
This is a very big deal. This is a dagger in the hearts of everyone who has championed voting rights for generations in this country. We saw the voters of Virginia engage in a democratic process. They're the ones who decided that they wanted to redraw these seats to favor Democrats. No different from what voters did here in California. And we're seeing the Virginia Supreme Court, take away that power for Virginia voters to be able to self-govern and determine who's going to represent them. This is a very chilling day in our country. It harkens back to our Jim Crow past. And there are a lot of folks who feel like the old Confederacy is making its way back.
Does it make it any more likely, though, Denise, that Republicans hold on to the House of Representatives?
Oh, of course it does. But let's be clear. This is not a win for Republicans. This is a win for democracy, and this is a win for the rule of law. This is a procedural issue. If you want to deal with the Virginia state laws and the Constitution, then you have to go according to what it actually says. And the reality is that the Supreme Court didn't shut down what voters voted on. They shut down the procedure through which Democrats ran this through, which requires that an intervening election happen between 2 legislative approvals before it's put before voters. This is a procedural issue. Democrats tried to change the rules mid-game, and the Virginia Supreme Court said, thankfully, no. And it's just simple. If you want to amend the Virginia Constitution, guess what? You have to follow the Virginia Constitution's laws. That's the rules. That's how it works, and I know that everyone watching understands that.
What about that, Nick? I mean, isn't there some truth to that? Even if you don't like the procedures, you got to follow them. Otherwise, you're going to lose in court.
I mean, well, look, the reality is that the courts are clearly picking favorites. It just so happens that there are a number of conservative legislatures, conservative-led states who have done the same thing. And you mean to tell me they got the procedure 100% right?
Constitution. That's the Virginia Constitution.
Right, you want different states, you mean, Denise? Right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Americans that can see right through this. The fact that every conservative-led state has seemed to get this right? And now Virginia, an effort that was led by Democrats in Virginia, they got it wrong. It's fishy. It does not smell right. And Americans will remember this when they go to the polls in November.
Well, I got a couple of Californians.
What happened in California as well.
Oh, good transition, Denise. You guys are both Californians, right? So that is the state I want to focus at least the rest of our time on here. I mentioned the polling. It just happened to come up in conversation earlier in the show, so I could put that up. Xavier Becerra has been surging on the Democratic side, and this last poll, he's 20-20 with Hilton, the Republican, okay? So, and that's been tracking now for the last few polls I've seen, that those two have been the 2 leaders, and obviously Democratic state, it would look good for Becerra. But in a larger conversation, for Democrats, Axios had a story today where it talked about what it described as dysfunction in California. The headline was California dysfunction puts backlash on the ballot. And that, to me, raises some questions, talking about California being the ultimate paradox. A democratic rule, a state of immense wealth, innovation, and cultural power is increasingly unable to deliver the basics: housing, public safety, and disaster response. And I bring that up kind of looking forward to maybe 2028, when the current governor of California looks like he wants to be the next president. But can you really run on a record like that?
Well, first of all, I just want to highlight that is that article, that Axios article, is just riddled with a lot of conservative talking points. We know that here in California, there's a lot of work that has to be done. But remember, across the state and across this country, we're seeing record low crime, particularly here in Los Angeles, where I'm broadcasting today. We know that people here in the city of Los Angeles, people across the state, want the state government to work better, work faster
Well,
when it
don't you
comes
think
to
that's a
delivering
fair
against
criticism?
affordability.
You know, with all the red tape, you talk about working faster, the response to the wildfires taking forever. Some of those criticisms, or even if they're coming from conservatives or conservative talking points, are fair, aren't they?
Well, look, I think our government can absolutely work better to serve the people, but we also have to be honest about the facts. With the LA wildfires, we know with the rebuilding process in the Palisades, for example, the city has actually processed, more permits. There are more people that are starting to rebuild in the Palisades than what is being reported. And so, yes, people want their government to work more efficiently and effectively, but we're seeing examples of leadership in the state that is attempting to meet the moment. There is so much more to do, but don't believe the dystopian narratives that we see coming out of our friends on the right, like Spencer Pratt, who's running for mayor of Los Angeles. You know, the reality TV star.
Yeah, right. He lost his house in the
Had any
wildfires and
experience?
all that. So he's run. He wants to be mayor of LA. But Denise, I think if you had to look at it and see who's going to be governor of California, all of these things said, it's probably going to be a Democrat named Becerra if these polls
It'll
hold,
most
right?
likely be. Yeah. Look, I'm 49 years old. I've lived in California my whole life with little stints in Washington, D.C. throughout the time. I've seen what California has become and how much it's changed. And I'm not sure if the good professor has lived quite as long as me because he looks a lot younger. But I will say that every single issue that's being brought up in all the polling that's so negative amongst all Californians is because of a one-party rule. And guess which party that is? The Democrats. They have been solely in charge for the last decade. And if you listen to those debates, every issue that's raised, every Democrat that's on that stage says, oh, I'm working on it. Guess what? You've had a decade to fix the issues in California. Don't you think it's time for someone else? And that's why 48% of California voters said they would consider voting for a Republican gubernatorial candidate. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a huge shift.
I think you're going to see arguments that you're going to hear out of people like Wes Moore, or Pete Buttigieg, or somebody else against Gavin Newsom on primary debate stages when he runs. Anyway, we have to run right now just because we're out of time, but we appreciate you both. Very good discussion on both topics, Nick Quarterline and Denise. Now, a solid, steady, and stable labor market.